Tonight on Reporting Scotland, a hard Brexit will benefit criminals. A warning from the European Security Chief on a visit to Scotland.
If we fail to find a way of maintaining close cooperation, the people who benefit first and foremost are the people who are trying to do us harm.
Also on the programme, should the next SFA Chief Executive come from out with football? The speculation starts. Small businesses are calling for a fix to what they say is unacceptable mobile phone coverage. Putting your best foot forward, how to stay safe in the mountains this winter.
And we'll be live in Cardiff ahead of tomorrow's opening match of the Six Nations Championship between Wales and Scotland.
Good evening. The European Commissioner for Security, Sir Julian King, has told BBC Scotland that a no-deal Brexit would benefit criminals who wish us harm. He's been speaking on a visit to Scotland where police and prosecutors want to keep existing EU security cooperation to tackle international threats. Here's our political correspondent, Glenn Campbell.
Moira Jones was abducted, raped and murdered near her home in Glasgow a decade ago. Police traced her killer, Marek Hakar, to Slovakia, from where he was swiftly extradited to Scotland and jailed for life. For the country's top prosecutor, it's an example of the sort of European justice cooperation that a no-deal Brexit would put at risk.
On that worst-case scenario, our ability to tackle cross-border crime and serious crime would be materially diminished. What we have in the EU is a set of arrangements which is particularly effective.
Under the European arrest warrant, EU countries transferred 48 suspects to Scotland between 2011 and 2016. During the same period, Scottish authorities sent 367 people to face justice elsewhere in Europe. The EU police agency Europol helps organise joint investigations and information sharing from its headquarters in the Netherlands, where Police Scotland has an officer based.
The powers that we get through the European Union as being part of the European Union and part of Europol are hugely important in the arsenal that we have. The spectre of not being part of Europol is one that looms large.
In her talks with the EU Security Commissioner, the First Minister also pressed the case for keeping existing arrangements. Both the UK and the EU want the sort of police cooperation that's coordinated from the Scottish Crime Campus here at Gartcosh to continue after Brexit. But that's easier said than done, because the system is currently supervised by the European Court of Justice. And the UK has, as a red line in its negotiations, coming out of that court's jurisdiction. That's one of several thorny issues the EU Commissioner hopes Brexit talks can resolve.
I'm not denying that there are some difficult issues to be worked through. If everybody involved focuses on the shared self-interest we have in getting this right, then I hope we can avoid making life too complicated.
But is it going to be more complicated?
If we fail to find a way of maintaining close cooperation, the people who benefit first and foremost are the people who are trying to do us harm.
These cadets, hearing from Commissioner King at the Scottish Police College, will have to deal with whatever Brexit brings, whether or not that makes their jobs harder. Glenn Campbell, Reporting Scotland.
A Scottish judge will decide next week if the European Court of Justice should rule that the UK alone can stop Brexit without the say of the other EU member states. Campaigners ultimately hope that Britain could have the option to remain in the EU if the Brexit deal isn't good enough. But government lawyers argue that the bid should be dismissed. Our political correspondent Andrew Kerr is at the Court of Session. Complicated issue, this Andrew. What are the campaigners arguing for?
Yes, Sally, this is all about keeping options open and about the authority of the United Kingdom Parliament. Now, this is a long and winding legal road. A cross-party group of politicians arrived here at the Court of Session in Edinburgh earlier today, except the Conservatives, of course, and they want the Court of Session to refer this up to the European Court of Justice in Luxembourg. Ultimately, they want the judges there to decide that the UK has the power to revoke the Article 50 process, stopping Brexit in its tracks on its own without the permission of the other EU member states. Now, that would mean that the UK could decide to stop the Brexit process if the deal on offer isn't good enough and to avoid crashing out with a hard Brexit. Now, campaigners say they're not wanting to stand in the way of Brexit, but as I said, this is all about keeping those options open.
If Parliament, if our democratically elected and Supreme Parliament comes to think it is in the national interest for us to remain, that must be an option that is on the table for Parliament. If I could wave a magic wand and stop Brexit tomorrow, I would not do it because I am a Democrat, but I do think it's critically important that Parliament have all of the choices before it. That's what democracy looks like.
And what about the arguments put forward by the UK government lawyers?
Sally, David Johnson QC was appearing on behalf of the United Kingdom government. He said this was purely a hypothetical issue. He said ministers had made it abundantly clear in Parliament that the UK was going to leave the European Union. And in fact, Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party, of course, supports that position too. Now, he added that Parliament would have the option to vote on the final Brexit deal. There was the option to take up that deal or to leave the European Union with no deal. Now, the judge, Lord Doherty, here at the Court of Session will make a decision early next week. I don't know if campaigners are hugely hopeful, but there's always a chance of appeal.
Andrew Kerr, thank you very much. The next SFA chief executive should come from out with football. That's according to a former national manager who's worked under three of them. The governing body has started its search for a successor to Stuart Regan after he resigned yesterday following boardroom pressure. Others in the game think the situation provides a chance for deep-rooted change. Here's our senior football reporter, Chris McLaughlin.
After 8 years in charge, the Regan reign is over. The search for his successor has begun. But the very problems that led to him being ousted from here yesterday will still be waiting for the next chief executive. In all honesty, it's a fairly tricky to-do list. First up, a new manager. Michael O'Neill said no, so just who will say yes? Then there's the future of Hampden itself. Talk of a move to Murrayfield. It's all a pretty confusing picture. Issues over sponsorship too, but just ask fans and they want success. For them, it's all about qualification. For the next SFA chief executive, well, their biggest problem will be getting Scotland to a major competition. Domestically, though, it's all about governance, bringing the clubs together, growing the game. Is it also a chance, though, for radical change?
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one for the Scottish FA, but also a tough one, I think, for the clubs. Because I think collectively, when there's a change at the top, everybody needs to really look at themselves and ask ourselves, is what we're doing as a collective, as a sport, as an industry in this country, right?
And the new chief executive who'll make that call should be someone out with the game. That's according to one man who's worked under three.
I think that might be an ideal scenario, because someone coming in from the game of football obviously has got preconceived ideas, and I think someone with a blank canvas coming in there with determination and a leader, that's exactly what we need.
Something needs to get done, but what can we do?
I'd like to see somebody come in and improve the situation and improve the reputation of Scottish football.
Somebody that's got the Scottish game at heart and wants to move the country in a whole forward.
A leader for Scottish football, someone who can unite and bring success. Sending out an SFA SOS. Chris McLaughlin, reporting Scotland.
A soldier with the Black Watch has been killed in an incident at an air base in Iraq. The Minister of Defence says the death of Captain Dean Sprouting from Stirlingshire was not the result of enemy activity. The father of two from Denny had served in the army since 1989. He died 2 days ago at the Al Assad Air Base, and investigations underway. A driver has been treated in hospital after his bus crashed into a tanning salon in Eastern Bartonshire. The McGill's bus was travelling in the Town Head area of Kirkintilloch just before 8 this morning when it crashed into the Sun Shack salon. The driver was taken to Glasgow Royal Infirmary. His injuries are not thought to be life-threatening. The owners of small businesses are urging the UK government to fix what they say is unacceptable mobile phone coverage across Scotland. The Federation of Small Businesses will call on MPs to create specific coverage obligations here. Ian McInnes has more.
Scotland's cities are fairly well covered when it comes to 4G mobile coverage. After all, we are all so reliant on these mobile devices for almost every aspect of our lives. But take a trip outside these cities and you don't have to travel far to find a very different tale. Places like here in Ullapool have a patchy mobile signal at best, but this isn't about uploading your favourite selfie to social media. This is having a real effect on businesses in the area. And none more so than in the tourist sector. A few miles from Ullapool, Ian Kay is preparing his bunkhouse for the new season.
I will maybe sometimes get left a message and you'll end up getting a broken message with the number on so you can't call them back, or even just the call itself, suddenly you lose the connection or you just can't hear them very well to establish what they're looking for. So it definitely has an impact, and I've lost customers as a result.
And it would appear Ian is not alone in his frustration, with issues affecting a variety of different business types.
The figures are stark. Scotland is being left behind, both in terms of geographic coverage and in premises coverage. While it might cost more to cover more Scottish consumers, that's an investment that we think the telecoms companies should be forced to make, because we can't see parts of Scotland left behind.
And it's not just the impact on businesses. Consumers, customers are feeling the knock-on effects.
Some people, because they get used to that technology, they don't know what to do with themselves when they suddenly lose that ability to connect with the outside world. They can't update things like Twitter or Facebook accounts and things like that. So they get very frustrated.
The UK government says things are improving in terms of mobile connectivity across the country, but they do recognise the geographical challenges being faced by Scotland. It's hoped these latest figures will encourage both the UK government and the mobile operators to keep rural communities in mind when the latest contracts are being given out. Ian McInnes, reporting Scotland in Ullapool.
You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. It's 18 minutes to 7. A reminder of tonight's top story. A European security chief visiting Scotland says a hard Brexit will benefit criminals. And still to come, Scotland prepared to take on Wales in the opening match of this year's Six Nations. The sister of a man who died after being brutally beaten in a street attack has made a public plea for his attacker to be caught. 37-year-old Paul Matheson was found with serious injuries in Renfrew on the 14th of January. He died in hospital almost a week later. Aileen Clark reports.
A sister left wondering who killed her brother and why. Paul Matheson was father to a 12-year-old boy, and the whole family, she says, has been devastated by Paul's death. They are desperate for answers.
Even if you think it's not relevant, still tell the police. Imagine if you were in our position. You would do everything that you could to find out why your loved one has been taken away.
Paul Matheson was 37 and well known in the pubs in Renfrew. On the 13th of January, a Saturday night, he was out for a few drinks. Police believe that Paul Matheson left the Western Bar just after midnight and went into the curry house next door for a pizza. Then it's thought he was heading home, but he never got there. Paul was found lying very badly injured in the street, just a short distance from his home. Injuries so severe he died a few days later in hospital. Police know he was chatting to his attacker before he received a vicious and lengthy beating.
They continued in a short conversation. However, that then resulted in an act of violence which rendered Paul unconscious. However, the assailant didn't stop at that point and carried out a sustained and rather brutal attack on Paul as he lay in the street.
Police believe he could have known his attacker and are keen to hear about any arguments Mr Matheson may have had either that night or before. Detectives are also keen to speak to a bald-headed man with an English accent in the area at the time, who they say may have key information. Aileen Clark, reporting Scotland, Renfrew.
The weekend is nearly here and the crisp wintry conditions are likely to lure more hill walkers and climbers into Scotland's snow-covered mountains. Experts say the key to staying safe is good decision-making. Jackie O'Brien reports.
Scotland's mountains can be unforgiving at this time of year. This is just one of a number of recent rescues, and with a near constant avalanche risk, the dangers are ever present.
There is snow moving, and it is moving on that wind, so hence why we're going to...
Some of these walkers have come to the Cairngorms to improve their skills after being exposed to danger themselves.
I went up Quibgoch in Snowdon. Wasn't expecting there to be any snow, and the whole of the scramble was decked in snow, and I didn't have any crampons or ice axes. It was, just surviving to the top, really.
So place your axe, kick in a step, Make sure you're not lifting your heels, so heels a little bit lower, drop your heels a little bit.
As well as mastering the practical skills needed in a winter environment, walkers and climbers of all levels sign up to courses at the Highlands Glenmore Lodge Training Centre to be taught the importance of good planning and decision making.
You want to get as much information as you can about the conditions to help you make a sound judgment. What you don't want to do is decide on a route several days before and then stick to that plan. You need to have several options, an A, B, C, a D option, and then choosing what option's best with the weather conditions on the ground at that time.
The recent spate of incidents has heightened awareness of the dangers in the hills at this time of year, and courses like this are proving popular with those keen to reduce the risks while making the most of the winter conditions.
I just like being outdoors, and it's such a stunning location that I'd like to see more in this climate, really. Just to know when I'm going to put myself in danger situations before I do, to identify those risks, and then just some basic skills so that those areas are less dangerous for me.
We're keen for people to get training. Don't get me wrong, there's very good recreational, mountaineers, walkers, climbers out there who operate really safely. What we tend to focus on is trying to show people what are the best habits rather than maybe learning someone else's bad habits.
The lure of Scotland's mountains in winter is unlikely to be diminished by the number of accidents on them. But these hill walkers are doing everything they can to stay safe. Jackie O'Brien reporting Scotland in the Cairngorms.
A group of Roma teenagers from Glasgow's Govan Hill area are hoping to change people's perceptions of their community through photos. They've spent 3 months learning to use a camera, and now their pictures are on public display. Katie Hunter has been to meet them.
I love this picture because I took it by accident. I was getting ready to take the shot and accidentally I pressed the button to make the photo.
One of my favourite pictures is my brother Marek and my cousin Dana at a christening family event.
This exhibition features Glasgow's Govan Hill area through the eyes of Roma teenagers. They've photographed people and places close to their hearts. They want this exhibition to challenge some people's stereotypes of the Roma community.
I really hope people realise that Roma kids aren't just people, they can do amazing stuff just like the rest of us.
My favourite thing about the project was meeting new people and getting to work with cameras more.
Robin showed us how to make pictures. He showed us how to control it and do with the balances and other stuff, how to change the colours, how to make the zoom in, zoom out.
Govan Hill is among Glasgow's most deprived areas. Last year, Police Scotland set up a task force to investigate claims of child sexual exploitation among the Roma community. The people involved in this exhibition hope it's the first of many positive projects.
That way we can build up more and more activities and raise Roma from that kind of area where they think, oh, we can't really move away from that, we're going to stay in the same ditch forever, So let's hope things will improve.
The teenagers, who also took photos of each other, started learning about cameras last November. Now their work is on display at the tramway in Glasgow.
They've worked so hard
and they've just really, we've been able to see their talents blossom, and they've created, I think, really beautiful work that just gives us an eye into their world that we wouldn't otherwise have had.
The exhibition opens tonight, a unique perspective on a unique area of Glasgow. Katie Hunter, reporting Scotland.
39 jobs are being lost in Scotland after the collapse of the construction giant Carillion. Almost 400 workers will be laid off across the UK due to the company going bust last month. It's led to delays on work at Edinburgh's Waverley Station and on the Aberdeen City bypass. The Unite union met affected workers today. It's calling for government action to protect jobs and public services. An emergency meeting of the Creative Scotland Board to review funding decisions for the next 3 years has taken place in Edinburgh. The organisation has faced criticism after announcing that 20 arts groups, including theatre groups working with children and people with disabilities, would have their regular funding cut. Creative Scotland declined to say what the outcome of the meeting was, but said there would be further announcements next week. Tennis, and Scotland's Cameron Norrie has clinched a remarkable victory to level the tie at the Davis Cup in Marbella against Spain. Norrie, ranked 114 in the world, fought back from 2 sets down to beat the world number 23, Roberto Bautista Agut. It's Davis Cup debut for the 22-year-old Scot, who's lived in New Zealand and South Africa, but first made his mark in the US college tennis circuit.
Played it point by point. Obviously I was a little bit nervous, and then I had a little bit of a streak in the second set where I couldn't manage my serve, but I managed to put it together and keep GB in the tie. So I'm just really pumped with my efforts, and just giving me lots of confidence because it's my first match on clay, so I'm just stoked.
Best day of your career?
100%, yeah. 100% for my tennis career, yeah.
Rugby's Six Nations Championship kicks off tomorrow, with Scotland taking on Wales in Cardiff in the opening match of the tournament. We haven't won the title since 1999, but after convincing displays in the recent autumn test series, could this be our year? Let's go live to Cardiff now, and our rugby reporter Andy Burke. Andy.
Well, Sally, if Scotland are to mount a serious title challenge, they'll in all likelihood have to do something they haven't done in 16 years. Win here in the Principality Stadium, one of World Rugby's most impressive and intimidating arenas. Recent form for Scotland does give cause for optimism, but the Welsh are ready for the challenge. Cardiff, one of the world's great rugby cities, and where many a Six Nations memory has been made. Scotland victories here in 1984 and 1990 were signposts on the road to Grand Slam glory. But what do the locals think of the current crop?
I'm sure Scotland will come down here thinking that they will get a win. But we'll see.
Hopefully it'll be a good game. It's going to be close, but I think we'll sneak it.
I'm a bit of a realist. I can see Scotland scraping a win on this one by a small margin.
Wales are always a daunting prospect on home turf, but injuries have hampered their preparations. Where Scotland's injuries have largely been restricted to the front row, Wales have casualties all over the pitch. They'll be missing 7 British and Irish Lions.
I think both teams will be focusing on the players that are on the park and not the people that aren't on the park, and that's probably borne out respect, obviously, for the competition and the occasion itself. We're very conscious of the brand of rugby they're playing at the minute and their evolution over the last 18 months.
Cautious optimism was the mood in the Scotland camp as they set off for Cardiff.
The expectation down there on the Welsh team is huge. Welsh rugby is like a way of life down there. So it's I think we go down there. We have, like any away game, you've got to try and start well, and part of that, if that happens, part of that will be to try and silence the crowd a little bit.
We believe in Gregor, as one, by the way. Come on to Scotland. Come on, everybody. Here we go, buddy.
As for the Scotland fans, it seems they travel to Cardiff in expectation as much as hope.
Wales are always strong. It's just, I think Scotland are just a little bit too much for them tomorrow.
Very hopeful.
Very hopeful. It'll be the first time in a long time we've been down here. The sixth time on the bounce.
Sixth trip, yep.
I've never seen them all in yet, so fingers crossed.
Scotland know if their Six Nations tale is to have a happy ending, it must start with a victory. Well, those fans will be among thousands here tomorrow, hoping to see their team make a winning start to the Six Nations and finally put that 16-year Cardiff curse to rest.
Here's hoping. Thanks very much, Andy Burke there in Cardiff. Let's take a look now at the weekend weather. Here's Cosser.
Thank you, Sally. Good evening to you all. Well, it was a fine end to the day for many of us, and we had some spells of sunshine too around the country. And while it's dry and clear to start this evening, there is a change for the start of the weekend as rain arrives from the west during the course of the night. It's this weather front here that's pushing into where we have quite a lot of cold air. And as that rain edges in, it will become increasingly wintry with some rain, sleet and snow in the mix. So here's the scene for this evening. A widespread frost, temperatures below freezing, and then we have that rain arriving from the west. It will be heavy at times, and there will be some snow up over higher ground, and then the added hazard of ice overnight tonight. And we do have Met Office yellow be aware weather warnings for most of the mainland away from the west, and this adding to some difficult conditions on the roads, especially during the course of the morning, and this warning is valid until 11 o'clock. So then, temperatures slowly will start to rise as that cloud arrives, but they could drop as low as -8 to -9 Celsius for some of the glens and the highlands and -4 for the borders. So the weekend does start cloudy, dull and damp with all this rain around, some snow in the mix up over the hills, but the conditions slowly start to improve for the far west by the afternoon. So if you're heading out around 3 o'clock, a lot of cloud and still some rain around for the south, for the central belt too. Along the west coast and for the Hebrides, we may start to see some brightness, but for all it is cold out there, highs of 3 to 5 Celsius. And for the Northern Isles, for Shetland here, seeing the best chance of any brightness, but also the chance of some showers. If you're planning to head to the hills or mountains, there will be some clouds, some snow to start the day. Conditions become a bit more showery for western ranges, but there will be a significant wind chill as we could have gusts of 35 to 40 miles per hour for the Kulin and Skye ranges and for Trossachs as well. For eastern ranges, that cloud a bit more stubborn to clear. There will be some light snow, some moderate falls perhaps for the Cairngorms, for the Angus Hills as well, and again, a significant wind chill. If you're planning to head to the slopes, well, there will be some fresh snow then on Saturday, and for Sunday too, it starts cloudy, but there will be some drier, brighter conditions for the afternoon. And the reason why, well, high pressure will start to build for Saturday night into Sunday. Saturday night too is another very cold night, and then for Sunday, a lot of cloud to start the day, but we will start to see a change by the afternoon with the cloud thinning and breaking to hopefully allow some brightness through. The best chance of that will be further towards the west, with light winds, but it will remain cold. There you go, that's your forecast for now.
Thanks very much, Cosser. Reminder of tonight's main news. The Prime Minister, Theresa May, is under pressure to be more specific about what she wants Britain's future trade relationship with the EU to look like. Negotiations on Brexit are due to resume on Monday. And a European security chief says a hard Brexit will benefit criminals. And that is Reporting Scotland. I'll be back with the headlines at 8 and the late bulletin just after the 10 o'clock news. Until then, have a good evening. Bye-bye.